Good evening, Canal Day International. It's time for the news coming your way live. Henry Atembe.
Have been living in fear at inhumane hours following the repatriation. Authorities in Yaoundé have remained mute amidst speculations that more Cameroonians. Elsewhere in this edition, we zoom in on the ongoing trade policy decisions by the Trump administration in the United States that have been crypto markets foresee that Cameroon remains the opposition Democratic Party of 87. Those were our headlines. Stay tuned for development in a moment with Tarike Divine, Ramsey Jr.
Thanks once again for keeping us company. Now imagine the consequences of going for several days without our region. There've been help that has now inspired.
Frustrated residents staged a mass protest at the forefront of the demonstration where the village chief of Manengwasa and several neighborhood heads who led the march in a show of community solidarity.
Est-ce que j'ai la capacité d'aller intervenir sur les réseaux de Kamwata?
Their first stop, the Loom Town Hall, initially met with locked doors. The protesters were later allowed in after a brief standoff. Mayor Kwate Wambo addressed the crowd, urging calm and promising to address their grievances. Next destination, Cam Water Agency, the institution responsible for after calming the agitated protesters, the DO invited them into a meeting. End of the session, the village chief of Manengwasa expressed satisfaction with the outcome. The meeting was constructive and they now hope action will follow words, said the chief. The administrative authorities reassured the population, stating that water supply will soon resume on a rational and regular basis, aiming to bring relief to the drought-stricken town of Loom.
Now, earlier this week, the as otherwise known in French as gros bras in the enforcement of court rulings, and so henceforth they are banned from collecting rents. Role and importance of these men and rarely women who usually appear to be so intimidating.
With outstretched muscular arms, hard stare, and loud voices, the bouncers care to hail anyone before them. Once in a neighborhood, home, building, sign of bad news. Described by the population.
Ils sont très violents, ces gens-là.
Ouais, pas d'armes, c'est la fausse.
En fait, parfois, ils sont brutes.
Je dirais même très sauvages. C'est plus comme des brigands.
Certaines menaces, certaines populations.
The force of landlords, caretakers, or some rich folks who use their strong arm tactic for forceful death collection and eviction of properties. Though their actions are not official, people say their manner notwithstanding, they are good. Some even feel they have their place in society. There are certain events stubborn persons come with these bouncers at the door, drop the idea of thinking to do certain things. We have the impression that they do not have a leadership trainer from their way of operating. But if not, they have a role to play. They should stop behaving as if they are greater than God. The Minister of Territorial Administration, Paul Atanganji, has instructed regional governors to put an end to the phenomenon. The use of bouncers for forceful death collection and eviction. The circular signed last Monday, April 21st, 2025. In Yaoundé, tongues are wagging on the matter. Those who think they have their place suggest they should be given some training.
Dans les sociétés un peu plus structurées, on les appelle des bodyguards. Ça veut dire quoi? Ils sont bien formés.
Il faut qu'ils passent par une formation.
Savoir comment les recadrer.
The minister circular added, the governor should also ensure that any mobilization of public force is preceded by the agreement of the competent administrative authorities. There are two laws on the matter. Law number 97/021 prohibits the formation and maintenance of private militia, that is bouncers, and law number 2023/011 regulates debt recovery procedures, emphasizing the role of public forces. This decision marks a significant step towards regulating practices that undermine public order and destroy state authority.
And elsewhere, Cameroonians residing in Equatorial Guinea have been gripped by fear and uncertainty since Monday, when hundreds of their compatriots were rounded up, some in detention and then expelled to the border town of Kiosi in the country's south region. About 48 hours after the controversial repatriation, authorities in Yaoundé have opted for silence amid speculations that more Cameroonians are set for expulsion. Here's Kejang Henry Atembe.
More than 250 Cameroonians are currently napping in the interim at the border following their recent deportation from neighboring Equatorial Guinea. This latest wave of expulsion has once again raised concerns over the effectiveness and sincerity of sub-regional integration efforts within Central Africa. According to reports, the deportees were expelled for allegedly lacking proper residential documentations. They were transported to the border by Equatorial authorities without prior notice, leaving many with no opportunity to organize their departure or secure their belongings. Despite the gravity of the situation, the Cameroonian government has yet to issue an official statement, sparking concern and frustration among the affected individuals and the wider public. It is worth noting that many Cameroonians residing in Equatorial Guinea reportedly hold the requisite legal documents. Nonetheless, several of those expelled have accused security officials of mistreatment and abuse, with some claiming they were subjected to physical violence and inhumane conditions during the process. Human rights observers have described the deportation as a potential breach of international norms and bilateral and regional unity, and disregards the rights and dignity of migrants. As the situation unfolds, many are calling on Cameroonian authorities to engage diplomatically with their Equatorial counterparts, seek redress for affected citizens, and reinforce the protection of Cameroonians abroad.
Meantime, figures from the Elections Management Body ELECAM indicate that the locality of Fu in the Central Region counts 2,500 newly registered. Explanation for a visit to the area earlier today by ELECAM board member Cecile Bombankolo, as she tells us Beatrice Ngamo.
Figures from Fu, Mefu and Afamba divisional branch of election in the central region of Cameroon not encouraging. The annual revision of the electoral list needs a push. Actually, we have about 2,500 newly registered, little bit below last year's record during the same period, but we count on improving the situation. The field trip by the electoral board member is to change the spirit and encourage the population. Cecile Mbombankolo held 2 consultations this April 23rd, 2025 at Mfu. First, with the SGO and Etat Major, followed problems, challenges, and the way forward. The electoral board member insists on sensitization at all levels, appealing on political parties to sensitize their militants in that light, adding many are still to understand the importance of voting, making their own choice to their satisfaction.
La période électorale
necessary to sensitize people, councils, civil status officials, parents, wherever they are, sensitize all. Though the annual revision of the electoral list is still timid, the second supervisory mission to Mfu, Cecile Mbombankolo adds, is one of hope. This for the next election to unfold in a serene condition, peaceful before, during, and after the period. There are just months to go before the convening of the Electoral College for the presidential elections in October. Elections Cameroon out to feel the enthusiasm in voters.
And in recent years, Cameroon's oil production has been witnessing a steady decline. In fact, this year, production is anticipated to drop to 2.9 million tons, which will be the lowest level. SEAC indicates a drop of 300,000 says other CEMAC member states are also facing oil production declines, including Equatorial Guinea. Experts blame various factors, including aging infrastructure, reduced investment, and challenges in exploration and production. And still, these have been sending shockwaves through financial markets across the globe, while Central African economies are grappling with the fallout.
The ripple effects of President Trump's trade policies that have triggered widespread market uncertainty, with major stock indices experiencing notable fluctuations, are still being closely monitored in Africa. However, financial analysts in Cameroon suggest the country is not significantly exposed to the direct consequences of the U.S. tariffs.
All what we are selling in the United States of America are not produced by people belonging to our stocks exchange. I told you that the stocks exchange is a market concerning only the seller and the buyer. And as far as the seller and the buyer are not member of the stocks exchange, you will see that the decision taken to increase the customs tariff have no impact on that way.
However, those investing in the digital asset space are feeling the stink of the global downturn. Crypto investors have seen substantial value loss in recent weeks, directly linked to market reactions from Trump's tariff decisions.
Bitcoin went from $85,000 to $76,000. But 1 week later, he said we should stop all the decision that he took for 90 days. What happened? Bitcoin went from $76,000 to $81,300.
Some market watchers have gone as far as to accuse Donald Trump of deliberately manipulating stock and crypto market trends to sway investor sentiments.
Many economic analysts said he is the one that he took those decisions to manipulate the market for him to gain. Because when he took those decisions, he knew that the stock market would fall. And who knows, he's the one that knew the information before, and he bought many actives, many Bitcoin, so that when he raised, he will sell and gain. And during my research, I saw that he gained more than $4,000 billion only with this information that he did.
In Cameroon, cryptocurrency adoption remains relatively low, estimated at just 7 to 8%. And with limited trade exchanges between the United States and Cameroon, this means the direct consequences of Trump's tariffs on Cameroon's economy remains minimal.
And now there is little gainsaying the fact that nowadays mobile telephones are simply indispensable possessions. In fact, they are so necessary that users don't hesitate to utilize them even while they are on charge. Serif Asale up next reports that the practice is not only risky, it is highly dangerous.
Daily power outages leave residents with little or no choice but to use their mobile phones while they are charging. A practice that's becoming increasingly common. With the frequent power cuts, many phone owners have no alternative but to keep their devices plugged in, even as they continue to text, browse, or make calls.
With electricity going off several times a day, I don't really have a choice. I have to use my phone while it's charging, or I risk missing important calls and messages.
However, there are growing concerns about the dangers of using phones. While some users don't have any alternative, others are cautious not to use their devices while charging.
I used to use my phone while it was charging without thinking twice, but after learning about the potential dangers, I've made a conscious effort to stop. Since I started using mobile phones, I've never used one while it's charging. I've always believed it's unsafe and I prefer to wait until it's fully charged before using it.
Experts say prolonged phone usage while on charge can lead to overheating, increased risk of battery malfunctions, or even explosions in extreme cases.
Using the phone while it's charging may seem harmless, but it carries real risk. Prolonged exposure can lead to migraine and constant headache due to heat and radiation the device emits. In some cases, especially with poor quality chargers, there is even a risk of the phone overheating or exploding.
In light of these warnings, experts are cautioning the public to avoid such dangers by using alternative sources such as power banks or avoiding long phone usage while the device is plugged in.
It's getting on close to 35 minutes after 6 p.m. Cameroon time, and let's move beyond Cameroon now, where in a controversial decision dated April the 22nd, a court in the Ivory Coast has disqualified Tijan Thiam as candidate for the upcoming presidential election in October. The court says Thiam, who is a leading opposition figure, lost his Ivorian nationality due to his acquisition of French citizenship in 1987. Despite Thiam's renunciation of his French citizenship last month, the court considered the move insufficient to restore his Ivorian status. The court decision is final and cannot be appealed, but Thiam has vowed he will contest the ruling. He now joins a list of notable opposition figures barred from the ballot, including Laurent Gbagbo and Guillaume Soro. And that's where we call it quits on this installment of the news. Thanks once again for the privilege of your company. The debrief is up next, but at 1950, more news in French with Alain Gislain Kanga. Stay safe. Have a great evening.